After failing to keep up with his schoolwork and chores, Zachary Elliott Callin was grounded by his parents in the summer of 2014. He was being homeschooled at the time, and his parents, Ryan and Maria, both in their late 40s, had begun considering sending him to public school. Following an argument on the night of August the 11th, the teenager, who is the youngest of 5 children, put on his headphones and entered his parents' bedroom at their home near Coit and Shepherd's Hill in Frisco, Texas. Ryan and Maria were asleep when Zachary stepped in holding a Martin Model 60 rifle, to which he had attached a flashlight using duct tape. He then gunned down the couple. Moments later, 911 services received a call reporting shots fired at the address. When officers arrived at the scene, they saw the teenager standing outside the home next to his sister. Law enforcement overheard Zachary telling his sibling that he did it, and when his sister asked if he'd planned the double murder, the teenager responded affirmatively. He was arrested, and investigators collected evidence from the scene, including the rifle with the strapped flashlight, duct tape, and bullets, which were found in the teen's room. Zachary was charged with the murder of his parents, and in September of 2016, he was found guilty. The teen was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Number 8. Jeremy Goodale and Willard Miller. Spanish teacher Nohema Grabber from Iowa was last seen alive on November the 2nd of 2021. The 66-year-old held her usual classes at Fairfield High School, but she was nowhere to be found the following morning. Grabber was reported missing on November the 3rd, and a search was immediately launched by local police. The woman's body was found that same day, hidden beneath a tarp, wheelbarrow, and railroad ties in Chautauqua Park, where she was known to take daily walks after work. Police were anonymously given evidence of social media communication implicating students Jeremy Goodale and Willard Miller in the Spanish teacher's killing. A friend of the duos had sent the authorities screenshots and messages, some of which showed Goodale standing next to a jug of Clorox bleach, captioned with "Time to hide a body." In another post, he'd taken a selfie and captioned it, "POV, you're my Spanish teacher and this is the last thing you see." The teenagers were arrested on November the 4th and charged with first-degree murder. Evidence gathered during the investigation indicated that Goodale and Miller had beaten Grabber to death with a baseball bat. Officers believed Miller's actions were motivated by the fact that Grabber had given him a grade which made him ineligible for an exchange trip to Spain. Following the incident, the teenager asked Goodale to assist him in killing the teacher. In July of 2023, Miller pleaded guilty to his charge and was sentenced to serve life in prison with the possibility of parole in 35 years. In November, Goodale also pleaded guilty and received a life sentence with the possibility of parole in 25 years. The teenager apologized to Grabber's family during the sentencing hearing. Number 7. Mason Cisk. On the night of September the 2nd of 2019, emergency service dispatchers in Alabama received a call from Mason Cisk, who claimed he'd been playing video games in the basement of his Elk Mount home when he heard gunshots. The teen told operators he'd gone to check on the commotion and found his entire family dead. He also reported seeing a vehicle pulling away from his home. At the scene, officers found the lifeless bodies of Cisk's father, 38-year-old John, and stepmother, 35-year-old Mary. Cisk's siblings, Kane, Rory, and Colson, were discovered dead in their beds. The teenager struggled to offer information about the incident to law enforcement, and he was taken to the station. Officers noticed several discrepancies in his statements and confronted him. Cisk admitted to shooting his 5 family members, saying he was fed up with their constant arguing. He was charged with 4 counts of capital murder. During the investigation that followed, Cisk led officers to the murder weapon which he'd stolen from a family friend. According to a report filed by his juvenile probation officer in 2020, Cisk exhibited no remorse and didn't speak about his family at all after the murders. His girlfriend at the time, Lola Holiday, showed investigators text messages she'd received from him in the massacre's immediate aftermath. Cisk had written to her that he wanted to become a contract killer because he was proficient with a gun, as he executed his entire family in less than 4 seconds. According to court documents, the teenager had previously tried to poison his stepmother by lacing her coffee with peanut butter, as he knew she was severely allergic to peanuts. Cisk was ultimately found guilty of his multiple murder charges, and in September of 2023, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentencing judge described his crimes as ghastly, disturbing, and draped in unmitigated evil. Number 6. Morgan Banks. Sophie Smith had been dating 18-year-old Morgan Banks for 4 years when she gave birth to their son in September of 2016. Due to various incidents of domestic violence throughout their relationship, Smith was assigned a social worker during her pregnancy, and their unborn child was placed on the protection register. The teen believed her boyfriend's violent behavior would change after the birth of their son. On October the 3rd of 2016, after the expecting mother realized she couldn't trust Banks, she contacted her social worker, who arranged for her and the baby to be housed in an apartment on Tempest Road in Beeston, West Yorkshire, England. After a child protection conference was held, it was agreed that Banks wouldn't be allowed to see his son unless another adult other than Smith was present. On October the 14th at 12:29 a.m., the teen mother called the emergency services and only said, "Help me," to the operator before she hung up. The authorities called Smith to check on her, and she said nothing was wrong, while she was most likely under duress. More than 4 hours later, Banks was seen walking along Tempest Road, bare-chested and covered in blood. The 18-year-old seemed frenzied, according to Andrew Boothroyd, whom he'd approached and asked to call an ambulance before fleeing. Paramedics found Smith's naked body laid on the bedroom floor of her flat and determined that she'd been beaten to death. Banks was tracked down and arrested at his grandfather's house shortly before 6 a.m. The ensuing investigation found that the 18-year-old had attacked Smith in an attempt to make her confess that she'd cheated on him with his brother and his cousin, and that the child was not his. Banks beat a false confession out of his girlfriend and then continued to hit her until she lost consciousness. Post-mortem examinations found that the assault had lasted for roughly 4 hours and that she'd been in a comatose state for some time before she died. The teenager had 11 broken ribs, a broken eye socket, a broken nose, and bruises all over her body. Medics said her injuries resembled those of a person that had been in a severe car crash. In court, Banks pleaded guilty to murder causing actual bodily harm and failure to surrender. He was given a sentence of life in prison with a minimum term of 18 years. The 18-year-old had a substantial criminal record of 30 convictions for 49 offenses, having first appeared in court at 11 years old. Number 5. Leslie Arnold. In 1958, Leslie Arnold got into an argument with his mother, Opal, after the woman had refused to let him take the family car to pick up his girlfriend. As the dispute unfolded, the teenager went into his parents' room and grabbed a rifle. He then returned to Opal and shot her dead. Minutes later, when his father Bill came home and discovered the killing, Leslie gunned him down as well. He then got into the family car and took his girlfriend to see The Undead at a drive-in movie theater. After his date, Leslie buried his parents' body in the backyard of their home in Omaha, Nebraska. He continued attending school for over a week as if nothing happened, until his grandparents visited the family home looking for his parents. The teenager was unable to explain their absence and confessed to the murders. He was subsequently arrested and ultimately given a sentence of life in prison. After 8 years behind bars, a time during which he was described as a model inmate, Leslie escaped the Nebraska State Penitentiary along with fellow inmate Jim Harding. The pair were aided by a former parolee who provided them with saw blades and rubber masks, which he threw over the fence and into the prison yard. Using the blades, Leslie and Harding cut through the bars of a window in the prison's music room. On July the 14th of 1967, the two inmates fled after attaching the rubber masks to their pillows to trick the guards during the daily head count. By the time it became known that he'd escaped, Leslie had already made it to Chicago. He would remain at large until his death in 2010, with the authorities unable to track him as he constantly moved cities and countries throughout the years. Over a decade after his passing, in 2022, his DNA was matched to that of a young man who'd registered with a public DNA database. In 2020, investigators found that the man was the son of Leslie, who'd changed his name to John Damon after the prison break. In the wake of his escape, he settled in Chicago, where he married a divorcee with 4 daughters. In order to remain a step ahead of law enforcement, Leslie moved his family to Cincinnati, then Miami, and Los Angeles. He met his second wife in the latter city, and they had a son and a daughter. Leslie again moved the family to New Zealand in 1992 and then to Australia in 1997, where he died at 69 years old. His loved ones had no idea that he'd killed his parents, and his children knew him as a great father. Number 4. Brianne Rivas. On April the 8th of 2020, teenager Janina Valenzuela was riding a bicycle at the arbors of East Cobb Apartments in Georgia, while her boyfriend was walking alongside her. They were heading towards a store in the area when they were approached by Brianne Rivas. The young man pulled a knife and threatened the couple. Valenzuela's boyfriend used the bicycle to escape the attack. While the girl started running on foot, she went into the woods behind the apartment complex, where Rivas caught up to her and knifed her to death. Valenzuela was reported missing before her body was later found in a creek. Rivas was arrested on murder charges, and the knife he'd used during the vicious attack was found at his home. At first, the teenager denied that he'd been responsible. While in jail, however, Rivas wrote a letter confessing to the murder of Valenzuela as part of an initiation rite with the MS-13 criminal gang. MS-13 was known to pride itself on the brutality of its members, with prospects often expected to prove themselves in that regard. Rivas was indicted in January of 2021 on 12 felony counts. In 2023, he pleaded guilty to malice, murder, and street gang terrorism, for which he was sentenced to life in prison without parole, plus 20 years. Number 3. Tyler Hadley. At around noon on July the 16th of 2011, Tyler Hadley announced on his social media that later in the day a house party was to take place at the home he shared with his parents in Port St. Lucie, Florida. When 54-year-old Blake and 47-year-old Mary Jo arrived home, the teenager hid their phones and locked the family's black Labrador in a closet. After taking 3 ecstasy pills, he snuck up behind his mother, who was working at the computer in the family room. Hadley repeatedly hit Mary Jo in the head with the back end of a claw hammer, killing her. Upon hearing his wife's screams, Blake rushed out of the bedroom and reportedly froze up as he witnessed the scene. Hadley then fatally attacked him with the hammer as well. After killing his parents, the teenager dragged their bodies upstairs into the master bedroom and went on to clean the house for several hours. Hadley made another social media post inviting all of his friends to his home, and then went to an ATM to withdraw approximately $2,000 from his parents' credit cards. Hadley used the money to buy drinks, drugs, and other party favors. Over 60 people attended the event, which started at around 9 p.m. and lasted until the early hours of the morning. During the party, Hadley and his friend, Michael Mandel, went on a walk together outside the house. The teenager confessed the murders to Mandel, and when they returned to the party, the latter discovered Mary Jo and Blake's bodies in the bedroom. He and Hadley continued to party for several hours and even took a selfie together. After leaving the residence, Mandel called a local crime hotline to report the murders. Hadley was subsequently arrested on murder charges, to which he pleaded not guilty. He was held in custody while the legal proceedings unfolded, and according to fellow inmate Justin Toney, Hadley would give out autographs with his self-proclaimed nickname Hammer Boy and write "It's Hammer Time" across news articles about the killings. Further investigation revealed the teenager had been planning the double murder for weeks, and that he was struggling with drug abuse and mental health issues. Hadley was convicted of his parents' murder, and in 2014, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The teenager was considered ineligible for the death sentence under Florida law because he was underage at the time of committing the murders. Today's topic was requested by Only One EP6943. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Brianna Gay incident. On February the 11th of 2023, transgender teenager Brianna Gay was invited by a friend to meet up in the Colchester Linear Park in Cheshire, northwest England. She went out of the house in the afternoon and was never seen alive again. At the park, she met with two teenagers, named as Girl X and Boy Y in court documents, who attacked her with a hunting knife. Gay was stabbed 28 times in broad daylight, and her body was abandoned after her attackers were spotted by a couple and fled the scene. They both returned to their homes and in the immediate aftermath acted as if they didn't know what happened to their friend. The victim's body was found in the park with fatal stab wounds to her head, neck, chest, and back. X posted a tribute message on her social media, along with a photo of Gay, whom she described as an amazing friend. She and the boy were taken into custody the day after the murder. Following the arrests, investigators found a handwritten murder plan in the girl's bedroom. They discovered that the two serial killer-obsessed teenagers had been conspiring to murder Gay for weeks and even had a kill list of 5 people before choosing their target. X reportedly had a dark fixation on Gay because she was different. Sickening messages exchanged between her and Y read that teens had discussed whether Gay would scream like a boy or a girl upon being attacked. In Y's bedroom, blood-stained trainers and a jacket were found, as well as a knife that had blood and human tissue positively identified as Gay's on the hilt. During the trial that ensued, X and Y denied the accusations and tried blaming each other for the killing. On December the 20th of 2023, the teenagers were convicted of murder at Manchester Crown Court. Evidence brought to court revealed both had a fascination with violence, torture, and murder, in addition to talking about their plan on a messaging app. On the day of the killing, X messaged Y telling him that a woman got stabbed in the park in an attempt to fabricate a cover story. A sentence hadn't been pronounced as of the latest updates on the matter, but the teens were expected to be jailed for life. If you're enjoying this video about adolescent offenders, then you'll love our upcoming video on when vloggers go wrong, coming right up after number 1. Stay tuned. Number 1. McKenzie Shilla. In the early hours of July the 31st of 2022, teenager McKenzie Shilla was driving a Toyota Camry in the Cleveland suburb of Strongsville, Ohio. She'd been smoking with her 20-year-old boyfriend, Dominic Russo, who was in the passenger seat, and his friend Davian Flanagan, aged 19, who was in the back seat. During the drive, Shilla suddenly plowed the vehicle into a brick wall at 100 miles per hour. She was the only survivor of the devastating impact, as Russo and Flanagan died on the spot. Shilla was found unconscious in the Camry, with her foot still on the accelerator. She was hospitalized with serious injuries, and the police launched an investigation following the accident. At the scene, there were no signs of braking or any attempt to avoid impact, which led investigators to suspect that Shilla had intentionally crashed the car into the brick wall. A surveillance camera in the area captured the teen as she'd used her turn signal and calmly turned onto the road prior to revving and ramming the vehicle. She was also suspected of angling the impact on the passenger side to minimize damage to herself. According to reports from those familiar with her and Russo's relationship, the teenager had threatened her boyfriend that she would crash the car with him in it during past arguments. Shilla was also known to have repeatedly degraded Russo during their fights. In addition to assaulting him and damaging his belongings in fits of rage, Shilla was suspected of intentionally killing her boyfriend as a result of dissatisfaction with their dissolving relationship. Flanagan, who'd merely wanted a ride home, was described by Assistant Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Tim Troop as innocent cargo. Shilla, who'd once boasted in a TikTok that she could do a lot of drugs and not die, was dubbed Hell on Wheels in the media as the official investigation followed its course. In August of 2023, Shilla was found guilty of 4 counts each of murder and felonious assault, as well as aggravated vehicular homicide and other crimes. She was sentenced to serve 2 concurrent 15 years to life sentences, and her driver's license was suspended for life. After pronouncing the verdict in the juryless trial, the judge pointed to the security video as evidence that Shilla had acted with purpose and intent. Number 8. Micah Salaman. In July of 2020, a vlogger from the Philippines was taken into custody by authorities in Honolulu, Hawaii, for failing to comply with quarantine regulations. Just 4 days after she'd arrived on the island, 20-year-old Micah Salaman filmed herself dancing in a store and dining at a restaurant. At the time, a 14-day mandatory quarantine for travelers was in effect as officials struggled to contain the spread of COVID-19. Salaman, who had millions of followers on YouTube and Instagram, filmed the videos in a Sephora at Ala Moana Center and at a Korean restaurant on Ki'omoko Street. The footage of her out in public was shared by a tourism authority with Attorney General's special agents, thus leading to the young vlogger's arrest. She posted a $2,000 bail and subsequently apologized for her actions on social media. Salaman also told her followers that local police had come to her accommodations and told her that she could go out if she provided them with a negative COVID-19 test. Hawaii Attorney General Claire Connors, however, disputed her claims. Number 7. Gav Sharma. Indian YouTuber Gav Sharma was arrested in May of 2021 and charged with animal cruelty following a stunt in which he tied helium balloons to his dog, resulting in the animal taking flight. The video was filmed in Delhi, and the vlogger, who had over 4 million subscribers, attached the balloons to Dollar, his pet Pomeranian mix. 31-year-old Sharma laughed as his small dog was airlifted to a balcony in a residential area. Another person then grabbed Dollar and pulled him to safety. The footage sparked outrage online, and People for Animals, one of India's largest welfare organizations, raised the alarm with local authorities. Sharma was then arrested under a section of the Animal Cruelty Act, as it was deemed he'd endangered the dog's life in the stunt. The vlogger apologized, but also claimed he'd taken the necessary safety precautions towards ensuring Dollar wouldn't be hurt. Number 6. Cesar L Galavis. A warrant was put out for the arrest of a Texas vlogger in March of 2021 after he'd recorded himself at a SpaceX launch site in Boca Chica in the southern part of the state. SpaceX, a corporation founded in 2002 by business magnate Elon Musk, launched its Starship SN-11 rocket on March the 30th. The rocket exploded above the landing pad during its return trip due to what Musk reported to have been a methane leak. Cesar L Galavis, who ran a YouTube channel called Loco Vlogs, had managed to get remarkably close to the ill-fated spacecraft. Earlier in the month, he began his vlog by excitedly addressing his followers to say, "Guys, I'm telling you, this is going to be epic. This is not what you've seen on other people's channels." It's unclear how Galavis had managed to access the property, but after filming himself in the rocket's shadow, he walked onto the launching pad and got close enough to capture its thrusters. As the video began circulating online, Cameron County Sheriff Eric Garza tweeted that there was a warrant out for Galavis's arrest on charges of criminal trespassing. Galavis subsequently removed the SpaceX video from his channel and uploaded another, in which he apologized for his actions. According to updates on the case, SpaceX had dropped the charges against him. Number 5. Nara. A YouTuber who boasted over 270,000 subscribers on his channel, was detained in March of 2020 after attempting to flee a traffic stop conducted by the Cumbie Police Department in Texas. Nara of Sterling Heights, Michigan, was observed by the authorities driving at 91 miles per hour in a zone where traffic was restricted to 75 miles per hour. He then sped up upon being signaled by law enforcement and headed north on Highway 50 towards Commerce. Nara approached the city limits but then turned south and crashed into another vehicle. His car started smoking from a rear tire and throwing fragments of rubber. Nara was forced to bring it to a halt in case he risked causing further damage and was taken into custody. He was charged with reckless driving as well as evading arrest with a motor vehicle, and his bond was set at $17,500. Even though he'd endangered the lives of others on a public street, Nara seemed to have no regrets over his behavior. After he was released, the vlogger posted a photo on his social media taken outside the Hopkins County Jail in which he was showing the middle finger. The post, presumably aimed at the authorities who detained him, received mixed reactions. Number 4. Govert sweep and ties Granier. In June of 2019, Bakersfield resident Matty Roberts created a Facebook event encouraging others to storm Area 51, a post which he would later claim had originated out of a purely comedic intention. Area 51 is the common name attributed to a highly classified facility located within the Nevada Test and Training Range and operated by the United States Air Force. For years, it has been the subject of conspiracy theories regarding contact with extraterrestrial life and experiments with alien technology conducted by the US. The mock event, an often repeated motto of which was, "They can't stop all of us," became an internet meme, and over 2 million users responded that they'd be going to it with the objective of forcing their way into the facility in search for proof of extraterrestrials. In July, a spokesman for the Air Force discouraged the would-be trespassers, claiming that the Armed Forces branch always stands ready to protect America and its assets. Many had recognized the dangers of approaching the base, and organizers cancelled the event, reportedly after the FBI had gotten involved. On the day, September the 20th of 2019, only about 150 people showed up at 2 Area 51 entrances, and none of them gained access to the facility. Prior to the main gathering on September the 10th, a pair of Dutch YouTubers were arrested for entering the Nevada National Security Site near Mercury, located more than 20 miles from Area 51. Govert sweep and ties Granier, both in their early 20s, were inspired by the Facebook event. They were caught by patrols who found a camera and an aerial drone in their rented car. Sweep and Granier admitted that they'd ignored signs warning them that they were in an area that was off limits to the general public. The pair mentioned that they had no intention of storming the base and merely wanted to see it from the outside. They pleaded guilty to misdemeanor trespassing and illegal parking, for which a judge ordered them to spend 3 days in the Nye County Jail and pay a fine of $2,280 each. They were allowed to return to the Netherlands following their release. Number 3. Sophie Rose. In 2017, on the Thai island of Phuket, a popular British influencer was killed in an accident involving a moped and an 18-wheel truck. Vlogger Sophie Rose, originally from Blackpool, was living in Phuket with her 29-year-old boyfriend, Danny Glass, also a British national, who ran a channel where he uploaded videos on health and wellness. Rose, aged 41, had received millions of views on her own YouTube channel, with some of her content advocating breastfeeding for older children. In many of her videos, Rose could be seen breastfeeding her 5-year-old son from a previous relationship. At the time of the accident, which occurred on May the 8th, Rose was reportedly 6 months pregnant with Glass's child. The couple were on a moped with Rose riding pillion. Glass swerved to avoid a parked car, at which point the moped collided with an 18-wheel truck driven by 30-year-old Thai national Nathawoot Kimsu. Rose sustained devastating head injuries and passed away, while Glass emerged from the accident largely unscathed. He and Kimsu were both arrested on charges of reckless driving causing death. Glass pleaded guilty and was given an 18-month prison sentence, suspended for 2 years, as well as a fine of nearly $450. Number 2. Jolie King and Mark Firkin. In 2019, a couple of traveling vloggers narrowly avoided serving a lengthy sentence in one of the worst prisons on earth. British-Australian woman Jolie King and her Australian boyfriend, Mark Firkin, had left their Perth home in 2017. They travelled across Asia in a Toyota Land Cruiser through countries that included India, Pakistan, and Nepal, documenting their experience in a YouTube vlog called The Way Overland. Through their videos, the couple reported that they hoped to inspire others to travel, but also dispel some preconceived notions about parts of the world that often got a bad rap in the media. King and Firkin's adventures eventually led them to Iran in the summer of 2019. On June the 30th, they uploaded a video of their first day in the Middle Eastern country. Their friends then raised the alarm when they no longer received any updates from them. It would later emerge that they'd been imprisoned. While trying to gather photos and videos for the travel vlog, the couple had flown a drone near military installations in Jarjrud, Tehran province. They were arrested at gunpoint, blindfolded, and taken to Evin prison on charges that had begun with espionage but were eventually downgraded to flying a drone without a permit. Evin prison, located in the eponymous neighborhood in the country's capital, is a facility that has been accused of serious human rights abuses and which one inmate described as a black hole of evil. King and Firkin were ultimately released in early October, following several months of negotiations between officials in Iran and the Australian government. While officially denied, there were reports of a prisoner exchange with 38-year-old Reza Dabashi Kivi, an Iranian former PhD student at the University of Queensland. Kivi was accused of conspiring to export restricted US defense articles to Iran, which could be used to detect stealth planes or missiles. He'd been arrested in Australia in 2018 and awaited extradition to the US, but the state media in Iran reported that he'd returned home. King and Firkin asked the media for privacy in the aftermath of their release, but stated an intention of eventually resuming their travel vlog. Number 1. Logan Paul. In December of 2017, YouTuber Logan Paul, a popular creator with millions of subscribers, and a group of his friends went to Japan, planning, among others, to camp in the Aikogara forest at the base of Mount Fuji. The forest is infamous for being a place where people choose to end their lives. Paul, then in his early 20s, and his companions entered the forest and found the corpse of a man who'd hanged himself. They cancelled their camping plans and alerted the authorities, but then, on December the 31st, Paul uploaded a vlog to his channel depicting the deceased man's body. Paul faced major backlash over the vlog itself and for how he and his group had reacted during the incident. Many internet users felt he was exploiting or making light of a tragic situation. The vlogger's overall behavior in Japan, a country that emphasizes propriety in social interactions, was also considered distasteful. He'd removed his clothes in a crowded street, jumped on a moving forklift at a fish market, and threw a giant pokeball at citizens, including a Tokyo police officer. In the aftermath of the Aikogara vlog, many of the projects that Paul had in development were cancelled, and there was a petition with over 500,000 signatures for him to delete his channel. Paul removed the video from his channel and issued an apology over Twitter, which was largely perceived as disingenuous. He issued further apologies and donated $1 million to prevention agencies that helped people who struggle with thoughts of self-harming. Following a brief hiatus, Paul returned to his daily vlogs on February the 4th of 2018. Thanks for watching. Would you rather spend 5 years in prison for something you didn't do, or 10 years for something you did? Let us know in the comments section below.